Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And you guys, now we have former Homeland Security Department advisor, also former Secret Service Special Agent Charles Marino. Charles, I was watching you on Fox earlier. You were on fire. When this decision came down, this is, of course, the one on birthright citizenship. You feel this really just opens the floodgates to bigger national security issues. Explain.
Yeah, I think this is the Supreme Court signing off on the number one incentive that promotes illegal immigration, and that's birthright citizenship. And they failed to take into account, Rita, the context of the current global threat landscape. Look, it's no longer 1868 when the 14th Amendment was first ratified, or 1940 when it was codified. We've got to look at this in terms to the current environment and the environment of recent decades. And that is, many individuals who are going to violate the law should not be entitled to birthright citizenship. And many of these that are violating the law are also sponsored by many of our nation state adversaries, like China. We've seen this play out. It's been exploited for far too long, and it's a detriment when you get a president like President Trump and his administration, who are focusing, and rightfully so, on the causation, on the entitlements that promote illegal immigration. And if you're not looking at something like birthright citizenship, then you're missing the bigger picture. So I think the Trump administration has been entirely right to focus on this and other areas in terms of quashing the way they have in historic measures the overall illegal immigration epidemic.
And you also believe, Charles Marino, too, that this is going to incentivize people. I think it does, because they just got a rubber stamp from the Supreme Court, including 2 conservative members. You can just kind of pop in and have a baby and they're a citizen.
Of course it is. This was no different than when Secretary of DHS Ali Mayorkas under the Biden administration stood at the podium in the White House briefing room and said, "We're not telling you not to come. We're just asking you don't come now." This is the equivalent of what the Supreme Court did today. They're holding up the stop sign with their left hand and they're waving everybody in under the table to say this is acceptable behavior. And so we're going to see now an influx, despite of everything that the Trump administration have done to bring down overall illegal immigration at the border by over 90% and enforcing the illegal immigration laws of this country the way that they've had to decrease this overall influx, we're going to see it spike at both our southwest border and northern borders because of what the Supreme Court has done today. The American public have lost today. They've lost based on our national security for the country wasn't enforced, and also entitlements. The American taxpayers are going to continue to bear the cost through entitlements of these illegal immigrants coming into the country and having babies here.
You just hit a really powerful point. The judge and I were both nodding when you're sitting there talking about entitlements, because it's not just obviously national security. It's a drain on finances. And we even saw, what was it in New York, $5 million that they spent on illegal immigrants within it was like a 2-year period. And now they just said, $1 billion, $5 billion. And now they're saying, come one, come all again. I mean, they're not giving any reason not to.
No, they're encouraging that. They're encouraging it.
Yeah, they are. Look at Minnesota, for example, with Somalians. The Somali head of households are at 87% in terms of receiving some type of welfare. And guess what? 10 years later, while they're still in the country, that only drops to 81%. What does this tell us? It tells us everything we need to know. Not only are we increasing the national security risks, because none of these individuals can be thoroughly vetted, despite what the Biden administration told us for 4 years, but they're going to continue to be a drain on the American taxpayers. So really, the Supreme Court, by ignoring the current environment that we're dealing with here, have really set the country and the American public up for failure. and some are going to pay with their lives in terms of the public safety threats that are being let into the country, and they're going to struggle to survive based on the flood of entitlements that continue to be received.
Charles Marino, John Katsimatidis. I just had we had Alan Dershowitz on the phone, and I think whoever filed the thing with the Supreme Court did it wrong, because if they would have done it saying that if people were tourists, they came in and had a baby, they're not going to be shouldn't be an American citizen, and if they're illegal migrants or immigrants, it shouldn't be an American citizen either.
Well, I think
we would have won that one. What do you think?
Look, I think there's also a level of responsibility here where the Supreme Court justices need to start paying attention to what's going on outside of their bubble.
Well, they should also.
Yeah, go ahead,
Charles. It's Judge Weinberg. They also should look back at the legislative history of the 14th Amendment. This was never intended to do anything but protect the former slaves.
Exactly. That
was exactly the issue before the court. They overread the 14th Amendment.
Whoever filed it with the Supreme Court or the court case, the appeals court, the Supreme Court, the district court, they went for the entire
John, you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
they should have narrowed and defined the issue, and they could have won.
Yeah, because if you said tourism, birthright tourism, it would have been different.
The other side of midnight, the Supreme Court should be smart enough to be able to say, yeah, we're not going to appeal, we're not going to accept this.
Yeah, parcel it.
But this portion is their right. If they're tourists or if they're illegal or migrants or
no way,
yeah,
no
right,
entitlement.
right, but they didn't. They just threw it out. Charles Marino, thank you very much. It's really great.
Real quick, Rita, do any of us envision that the founders of this country could look so far forward as to imagine what we're dealing with today?
Never.
That's 250 years ago.
Right, never. That we'd have, 10 to 20 million coming in?
But it is a clear and present danger to the country.
It is.
But the drafters of the 14th Amendment, because of the Civil War, knew exactly what they were dealing with. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were trying to protect the former slaves.
We got to take a break. Thank you, Charles Marino, for coming on.
Thank you.
And keep fighting for our country.